A historic calamity unfolds in Jerusalem. In an unprecedented environmental catastrophe, Jerusalem is grappling with the most severe wildfire in its recorded history, marking a devastating chapter in the city's ancient chronicle. The inferno, which began under scorching summer conditions exacerbated by climate change patterns, has rapidly evolved into a crisis of historic proportions. As of the latest reports, thousands of residents have been forcibly displaced from their homes, creating a humanitarian emergency that echoes through the sacred hills and valleys of this millennia-old city. The wildfire's impact extends far beyond mere property damage, threatening centuries-old cultural heritage sites and religious landmarks that have withstood countless historical upheavals. The scale of devastation is staggering, with preliminary estimates suggesting hundreds of structures destroyed or severely damaged, including residential buildings, historical sites, and critical infrastructure. Emergency response teams are facing unprecedented challenges as they battle not only the raging flames, but also coordinate massive evacuation efforts across multiple neighborhoods. This unfolding disaster represents more than just an environmental crisis. It serves as a stark warning about the increasing vulnerability of urban centers to extreme weather events in our warming world. The situation has drawn international attention, with global leaders expressing concern over both the immediate humanitarian needs and the long-term implications for one of the world's most historical, significant cities. As Jerusalem confronts this monumental challenge, the world watches with bated breath, recognizing that the outcome will set important precedents for urban disaster management and climate adaptation. Strategies in vulnerable regions worldwide. Origins and escalation, tracing the fire's devastating path. The genesis of this catastrophic event can be traced back to an unusually intense heat wave that gripped the region in early August, when temperatures soared to record-breaking levels exceeding 45 Celsius 113 F. Meteorological data indicates that these extreme conditions were preceded by months of below-average rainfall, creating ideal conditions for rapid fire spread. The initial spark reportedly originated in the wooded areas surrounding Jerusalem's western outskirts, near the Ein Kerem neighborhood, where dry vegetation and strong seasonal winds created a perfect storm for rapid fire propagation. Within hours of ignition, the blaze exhibited alarming growth patterns, doubling in size every 20 minutes during its initial phase. Local fire officials attribute this explosive expansion to the unique combination of factors. The prevailing easterly winds, known locally as Sharav, carried embers across vast distances, while the exceptionally drier and tinder-dry vegetation acted as accelerants. By the end of the first day, the fire had consumed over 2,000 acres of forested land, forcing the closure of major highways and triggering the first wave of evacuations. As the second day progressed, the fire's behavior became increasingly erratic and unpredictable. Thermal imaging revealed multiple hotspots developing simultaneously, complicating containment efforts. The fire's path took on a devastating trajectory, jumping from the natural landscape into densely populated areas, particularly targeting the southern and southwestern suburbs of Jerusalem. The Mount Herzl area, home to Israel's national cemetery and numerous diplomatic compounds, narrowly escaped direct impact, though adjacent neighborhoods were not as fortunate. The fire's progression was marked by several critical turning points. On the third day, a sudden shift in wind direction pushed the blaze toward the ancient forests surrounding the Hadassah Medical Center, threatening both medical facilities and residential areas. This development forced authorities to implement unprecedented evacuation protocols, including the use of military transport to remove hospital patients and staff. Satellite imagery captured during this period shows a distinct pattern of destruction, with the fire following natural ridgelines and valleys, creating what experts describe as fire corridors that amplified its destructive power. By the fourth day, the cumulative burned area had exceeded 15,000 acres, making it the largest single fire event in Jerusalem's documented history. The fire's movement displayed characteristics typical of megafires, including the creation of its own weather system, with pyrocumulus clouds observed above the burn zone. These atmospheric phenomena further complicated firefighting efforts, as they generated localized wind patterns that defied conventional meteorological predictions. The fire's impact was not uniform across affected areas. Historical analysis reveals distinct patterns of destruction, with older neighborhoods built from traditional stone materials showing greater resilience compared to newer developments constructed with modern materials. However, this advantage was often negated by the dense vegetation surrounding many historic properties, which served as conduits for the flames. The fire's path also disproportionately affected certain communities, with poorer neighborhoods on the city's periphery suffering more extensive damage due to less stringent building codes and limited access to firefighting infrastructure. Throughout its evolution, the fire demonstrated remarkable adaptability, finding new fuel sources and pathways for expansion. The destruction of power lines led to cascading electrical failures, which in turn sparked secondary fires in multiple locations. This self-reinforcing cycle of destruction created additional challenges for emergency responders, who were forced to divide their resources across an ever-expanding front. The fire's final phase saw it moving into previously burned areas, consuming remaining fuel and creating dangerous pockets of residual heat that would complicate recovery efforts for weeks to come. Human toll and evacuation challenges, a city in crisis. The human impact of Jerusalem's unprecedented wildfire has manifested in profound ways, affecting tens of thousands of residents across diverse communities. Official statistics indicate that approximately 78,000 individuals have been evacuated from their homes, with some families displaced multiple times as the fire's unpredictable path necessitated repeated relocations. The psychological toll has been equally devastating, with local mental health services reporting a 400% increase in crisis calls since the onset of the disaster. Particularly concerning are the reports from pediatric psychologists treating children who witnessed their homes burning, describing symptoms ranging from acute stress reactions to regression in developmental milestones. The evacuation process itself presented extraordinary logistical challenges. In the densely populated neighborhoods of Taupi and Angelo, where narrow streets and limited parking spaces complicated emergency vehicle access, residents described chaotic scenes of gridlock traffic and panicked crowds. Elderly populations, comprising nearly 15% of affected residents, faced particular difficulties, with many requiring specialized transportation and medical assistance. The city's network of community centers and public facilities quickly reached capacity, prompting the establishment of temporary shelters in schools, sports arenas, and even parking structures. Notably, the Jerusalem Convention Center was transformed into a massive evacuation hub housing over 10,000 displaced persons at its peak. Economic disruption has proven equally severe, with businesses across various sectors experiencing immediate and long-term impacts. The tourism industry, a cornerstone of Jerusalem's economy, suffered an estimated $50 million in losses during the first week alone as hotels emptied and tour operators canceled bookings. Local merchants reported combined daily losses exceeding $2 million, with small business owners particularly vulnerable due to lack of insurance coverage against natural disasters. The agricultural sector faces potentially catastrophic consequences, as orchards and vineyards representing generations of investment have been reduced to ash. Preliminary assessments suggest that crop losses could exceed $30 million, with long-term soil degradation posing additional challenges for future cultivation. The displacement crisis has highlighted existing social inequalities, with low-income families disproportionately affected by both the fire and subsequent recovery efforts. Many renters found themselves without adequate documentation to prove residency or ownership, complicating their ability to access emergency assistance. The loss of personal belongings, including essential documents and irreplaceable family heirlooms, has created additional layers of trauma and bureaucratic obstacles. Community organizations have stepped in to fill gaps in official support systems, establishing donation centers and volunteer networks to assist those most in need. However, the sheer scale of need continues to outpace available resources, with waiting lists for temporary housing growing longer each day. Perhaps most concerning are the long-term socioeconomic implications emerging from this crisis. Real estate experts predict significant market distortions as displaced families compete for limited rental properties, driving up prices in unaffected areas. The education sector faces unprecedented disruption, with dozens of schools damaged or repurposed as shelters, affecting approximately 15,000 students. Healthcare providers report increased demand for services related to respiratory issues, stress-related disorders, and chronic condition management, stretching already limited medical resources thin. The cumulative effect of these disruptions threatens to create a prolonged period of economic instability that could reshape Jerusalem's social fabric for years to come. Environmental catastrophe, nature's irreversible losses. The ecological ramifications of Jerusalem's historic wildfire extend far beyond the immediate destruction visible to the naked eye. Environmental scientists estimate that over 70% of the city's native Mediterranean ecosystem has been fundamentally altered, with particular devastation visited upon the region's ancient oak forests and rare plant species. The Jerusalem forest, spanning approximately 1,000 hectares, has suffered catastrophic losses, with researchers predicting it may take over 100 years for the ecosystem to regain even a fraction of its former biodiversity. Of particular concern is the fate of the Palestine oak Quercus calaprinos, a keystone species whose population has been reduced by an estimated 65% within the burn perimeter. Wildlife specialists report alarming mortality rates among native fauna, with preliminary surveys indicating that up to 85% of small mammal populations and 70% of avian species have been directly impacted. The fire's timing proved especially devastating, coinciding with critical nesting and breeding seasons for many species. Endangered animals such as the hyrax and Nubian ibex face existential threats as their habitat has been reduced to charred remains. More alarmingly, the fire destroyed crucial wildlife corridors connecting isolated populations, potentially leading to genetic bottlenecks and increased extinction risks for several endemic species. Soil scientists have identified another pressing environmental concern: the unprecedented level of soil degradation across affected areas. Intense heat has caused hydrophobic layers to form beneath the surface, preventing water absorption and dramatically increasing the risk of flash floods during the approaching rainy season. Laboratory analyses reveal that organic matter content in topsoil has been reduced by up to 90%, with severe implications for future vegetation regeneration. The loss of mycorrhizal fungal networks, vital for nutrient exchange between plants, represents another invisible but critical dimension of ecological damage. The fire's impact on water resources has emerged as a particularly complex environmental challenge. Burnt debris and ash have contaminated key watersheds, including the Sorik Stream Basin, raising concerns about water quality for both human consumption and agricultural use. Aquatic ecosystems face potential collapse as heavy metals and other toxins mobilized by the fire leach into groundwater supplies. Additionally, the destruction of riparian vegetation along stream banks has compromised natural filtration systems, potentially accelerating erosion processes and altering microclimates crucial for local biodiversity. Perhaps most troubling is the evidence suggesting that the fire has created positive feedback loops likely to exacerbate future climate impacts. The loss of tree cover reduces the area's carbon sequestration capacity, while exposed soil surfaces increase albedo effects that could alter local precipitation patterns. Researchers warn that these changes may push Jerusalem's ecosystem past critical tipping points, potentially transforming once stable habitats into more arid landscapes dominated by invasive species better adapted to post-fire conditions. The disappearance of traditional plant communities, coupled with changing microclimate conditions, threatens to fundamentally rewrite the ecological character of one of the world's most historically significant landscapes. Response and recovery, mobilizing against the inferno. The unprecedented scale of Jerusalem's wildfire necessitated an unprecedented response, mobilizing resources and expertise from across Israel and beyond. The National Fire and Rescue Authority deployed over 1,200 firefighters, supported by 250 specialized vehicles and 15 aerial units, including helicopters equipped with monsoon buckets and modified planes capable of dropping 6,000 liters of fire retardant in a single pass. International assistance arrived swiftly, with firefighting teams and equipment from Greece, Italy, and Cyprus joining the effort within 48 hours. These reinforcements brought crucial experience in managing Mediterranean wildfires, proving invaluable in adapting suppression strategies to Jerusalem's unique urban-forest interface. Technological innovations played a pivotal role in containment efforts. Drones equipped with thermal imaging cameras provided real-time data on fire behavior and hotspots, enabling commanders to deploy resources more effectively. Advanced GIS mapping systems allowed for precise tracking of fire boundaries and helped identify vulnerable structures in advance of the flames' approach. Perhaps most significantly, newly developed fire-resistant foam barriers were deployed around critical infrastructure, successfully protecting key facilities like the Hadassah Medical Center and the Knesset building complex. Water-dropping aircraft utilized cutting-edge GPS guidance systems to maximize accuracy and minimize waste, with precision drops reducing water usage by 40% compared to traditional methods. Recovery operations have been equally sophisticated, employing a multi-layered approach to address both immediate needs and long-term rehabilitation. The Israeli government established a special task force comprising urban planners, environmental scientists, and social service agencies to coordinate rebuilding efforts. Temporary housing solutions incorporate modular construction techniques, allowing for rapid deployment while maintaining structural integrity. Psychological support programs have been integrated into all aspects of recovery planning, with mobile counseling units operating alongside reconstruction teams in affected neighborhoods. Environmental restoration efforts represent perhaps the most ambitious aspect of the recovery plan. Teams of botanists and ecologists have begun cataloging surviving plant specimens to establish gene banks for future reforestation projects. Specialized nurseries are cultivating native species using seeds collected before the fire, ensuring authentic ecological restoration rather than simple replanting. Soil stabilization techniques borrowed from desertification prevention programs have been implemented to prevent further degradation, while innovative water harvesting systems are being installed to support regenerating vegetation. The economic recovery strategy includes innovative financial mechanisms designed to facilitate community rebuilding. A special reconstruction fund has been established, offering low-interest loans and grants to affected homeowners and businesses. Insurance companies have partnered with government agencies to streamline claims processing, while special tax incentives encourage investment in fire-resistant construction methods. Notably, the recovery plan incorporates lessons learned from previous disasters, mandating the incorporation of fire breaks and defensible space requirements in all reconstruction projects, fundamentally altering building codes in fire-prone areas. International solidarity, global response to Jerusalem's crisis. The international community's response to Jerusalem's wildfire tragedy has demonstrated remarkable solidarity, with nations across the globe mobilizing resources and expertise to support Israel's emergency efforts. Within hours of the disaster's escalation, the European Union activated its civil protection mechanism, coordinating contributions from member states that included specialized firefighting aircraft, ground crews, and technical advisors. France deployed 6 Canadair CL-415 water bombers, while Spain sent 2 amphibious Beirut B-200 aircraft, significantly enhancing Israel's aerial firefighting capabilities. Germany contributed advanced fire detection technology and trained personnel skilled in urban wildland interface management, addressing Jerusalem's unique geographical challenges. Diplomatic channels facilitated swift coordination of international aid, with embassies serving as crucial nodes for resource allocation and information sharing. The United States Agency for International Development USAID dispatched disaster response teams and committed $5 million in immediate humanitarian assistance, focusing on shelter provision and medical support. Canada organized a shipment of specialized protective gear and breathing apparatuses for first responders, while Australia shared its expertise in managing large-scale bushfires through virtual consultation with Israeli command centers. Japan's contribution included state-of-the-art satellite imaging technology and remote sensing equipment, providing critical data for strategic decision-making. Regional cooperation has proven particularly significant, transcending political tensions in the face of shared environmental threat. Jordan and Egypt offered logistical support and border access for international relief convoys. while Palestinian authorities facilitated cross-border coordination for emergency services operating near shared fire zones. Turkey's donation of 3 firefighting helicopters and experienced crews demonstrated the potential for pragmatic collaboration on humanitarian grounds. The Gulf Cooperation Council countries pooled resources to deliver medical supplies and temporary housing materials, establishing a foundation for future regional disaster response cooperation. The global response extended beyond immediate emergency assistance to include long-term recovery commitments. The World Bank approved a $200 million reconstruction package focused on resilient infrastructure development, while the International Monetary Fund (IMF) offered financial restructuring options to help manage the economic fallout. Major humanitarian organizations, including the Red Cross and Médecins Sans Frontières, established field operations to address both physical and psychological trauma among affected populations. UNESCO pledged technical assistance in restoring damaged cultural heritage sites, emphasizing the importance of preserving Jerusalem's unique historical character. Lessons learned: building resilience against future wildfire threats. The Jerusalem wildfire catastrophe has illuminated critical vulnerabilities in urban disaster preparedness while simultaneously showcasing innovative approaches that merit replication worldwide. Key among these lessons is the imperative of integrating advanced predictive modeling with traditional firefighting methodologies. The successful deployment of AI-driven fire behavior prediction systems, combined with real-time satellite data analysis, demonstrated how technology can transform reactive firefighting into proactive fire management. Cities globally should prioritize investment in similar predictive capabilities, particularly those in Mediterranean climates facing similar wildfire risks. Community-based preparedness initiatives emerged as another crucial factor in mitigating disaster impact. Neighborhoods that had previously participated in fire safety drills and maintained clear defensible spaces around properties showed markedly better resilience. This underscores the importance of sustained public education campaigns focused on individual responsibility and collective action. Municipal governments worldwide should consider implementing mandatory annual fire readiness assessments for properties in high-risk areas, coupled with accessible funding for necessary improvements. The incident highlighted the necessity of robust interagency coordination frameworks. Jerusalem's experience demonstrates that effective disaster response requires seamless integration between municipal services, national agencies, and international partners, the establishment of dedicated communication hubs and standardized protocols for resource allocation proved invaluable. Other urban centers should develop similar centralized command structures, incorporating representatives from all relevant sectors including utilities, transportation, healthcare, and communications. Perhaps most significantly, the wildfire revealed the critical intersection of climate adaptation and urban planning. The destruction of mixed-use developments in fire-prone areas suggests the need for fundamental reassessment of zoning policies in vulnerable regions. Forward-looking cities should adopt progressive building codes that mandate fire-resistant materials and incorporate natural fire breaks into urban design. Furthermore, the importance of maintaining healthy ecosystems as natural buffers against wildfire spread cannot be overstated. Urban forestry programs must balance aesthetic considerations with strategic fire management objectives. Conclusion: forging a resilient future from ashes of crisis. The Jerusalem wildfire stands as a watershed moment in modern urban disaster history, fundamentally reshaping our understanding of climate-related risks in densely populated areas. This unprecedented catastrophe has demonstrated that even cities with millennia of resilience face existential threats from escalating environmental challenges. The convergence of extreme weather patterns, urban sprawl, and fragile ecosystems created a perfect storm that overwhelmed traditional mitigation strategies, underscoring the urgent need for paradigm shifts in urban planning and disaster management. The fire's impact extends far beyond physical destruction, serving as a stark reminder of civilization's vulnerability to nature's forces in an era of climate uncertainty. Looking forward, Jerusalem's recovery presents an opportunity to pioneer new models of sustainable urban development. The city's reconstruction efforts must embrace innovative concepts of fire-adapted communities, integrating advanced technology with time-tested principles of ecological harmony. This includes developing hybrid infrastructure systems that combine modern engineering with natural defenses, creating urban landscapes that can withstand and recover from future disasters. The global attention this event has garnered positions Jerusalem as a laboratory for climate adaptation strategies, where lessons learned can inform urban resilience planning worldwide. The fire's aftermath demands a collective reckoning with the realities of climate change's impact on historical preservation. Protecting cultural heritage in the face of increasing environmental threats requires reimagining conservation practices through the lens of climate resilience. This means balancing preservation imperatives with pragmatic adaptations that ensure both survival and authenticity of historical sites. As Jerusalem rebuilds, it must chart a course that honors its past while preparing for an uncertain future, setting a precedent for other historic cities facing similar challenges. Ultimately, this crisis has revealed the interconnectedness of environmental, social, and economic systems in urban areas. The successful recovery of Jerusalem depends not merely on rebuilding structures but on reconstructing a more resilient societal framework. This includes strengthening social cohesion, enhancing economic diversity, and fostering environmental stewardship among all stakeholders. The city's response to this disaster will serve as a benchmark for how modern urban centers can transform moments of crisis into opportunities for meaningful transformation, creating a legacy of resilience that honors both its ancient heritage and its future aspiration.